You hatch into a world that doesn't celebrate births, it recycles them. You're a wet, blinking thread of muscle and panic inside a collapsing heap of siblings. No mother guarding the nest, no warm-blooded lullabies. She laid the eggs and ghosted. Classic reptile HR, zero benefits, negative onboarding. You learn your first rule while still tasting shell. Movement equals risk. The swamp is a rumor mill of mouths, herons stippling the sky, piranhas sawing the water, caimans drafted from a sharper century. And inside this mess, a quieter horror, your own kin, measuring you with calorie math. Cannibalism isn't a scandal here, it's logistics. So you become a tiny vow. Don't ripple, don't glitter, don't inhale like prey. The world fears the adult you, but the baby version? You're a snack-sized prophecy, shrink-wrapped in hope. Survival isn't about strength yet, it's about not being nominated. You practice invisibility until it hurts, then you practice breathing smaller than that. You slither like a damp punctuation mark across a sentence written in mud. Everything that moves is threat or mirror or both. You're not a predator, you're an idea with teeth on layaway. Each reed that twitches might be wind, might be talon. You freeze until your muscles hum like wires. Instinct is your only tutor, and it teaches in pop quizzes. Strike zones you can't define, distances you misjudge, hunger that makes you brave in the stupid way. If a larval fish drifts too close, you lunge, too hard, too splashy, broadcasting your GPS to the neighborhood death committee. The swamp keeps receipts. You learn to parse currents for gossip. A bubble that isn't yours, a shadow with opinions. Your body sells you out, soft, shiny, caloric, as if you're wrapped in neon telling the world fresh. So you practice the sacred arts of less motion, less silhouette, less certainty. Even your exhale is an advertisement. You file it down to a whisper you're not sure you heard. Weeks are stitches. You grow between them. Longer now, slicker, slightly upgraded fear. You score your first real victory, something with a pulse and a story, coaxed into your coils by patience masquerading as luck. Triumph tastes like permission. Then the water detonates. A caiman arrives the way bad news does, instantly, and with your name. You abandon pride at the shoreline and vanish through a geometry of reeds. Breath becomes a currency you can't afford. The meal escapes, the lesson doesn't. Size is law, and you're a legal argument at best. You start hunting like a rumor. No ripples, no witnesses. You also edit your definition of family to competition with shared childhood photos. The slow sibling, he's a subtraction problem someone else solved. If you're still here and not yet lunch, that's content worth subscribing for. Before some algorithm decides you belong to a caiman's highlight reel, tap subscribe and the bell. Because in this swamp, the only safe alert is the one you control. Growth arrives with invoices. More muscle, more hunger, more signature in the water. You can spook frogs now. Congrats on terrifying the appetizers. Everything bigger still treats you like a lottery ticket with better odds than usual. Ambush becomes your religion. Fasting, the daily rite. You learn the math of patience, angles, shadows, distances measured in silent breaths. A chick tumbles riverward, and you pop from nowhere like a bad decision. Feast, then disappear, because every success is a beacon, and the jungle reads. On land, sunlight is betrayal. In open water, your wake is confession. You torture motion into sculpture, a kind of moving stillness. Your eyes learn how to listen. Your body learns how to not be a headline. Apex? Not yet. You're the audition tape. Any hawk with an attitude can file an objection. The swamp is not impressed by your progress. It punishes momentum. So you hoard stillness like currency and spend it only when the math says now. A meter long and newly confident, you confuse length with authority. The reeds disagree. You don't pass through them anymore. You edit them. Trails appear. Scent writes your biography on the water's surface. Predators develop a taste for your foreshadowing. That caiman from 2 weeks ago keeps showing up like a bad sequel with a bigger budget. Meanwhile, the neighborhood gets crowded with ambition. Other snakes patenting silence, drawing territory with intentions you can smell. You don't challenge, you annotate. But famine will tighten the typeface soon. And then the swamp's economics simplify. Starve, or attempt a thesis on dominance. There's no ceremony for losers, just bubbles and a sudden absence of pronouns. So you study escalation the way monks study breath. What to coil, when to commit, how to leave without being seen leaving. You rehearse conflict in your head, aware that reality is always louder and has lawyers. Then comes the pivot. Warm blood. A juvenile capybara zigzags into geometry it doesn't understand, and you solve the equation by subtraction. The fight is brief. The aftermath is administrative. You're a parade float of fullness. Billboards of scent announcing fragile, heavy, distracted. That's when the water parts without moving. Another anaconda. Bigger, older, proficient in the grammar you still conjugate. You trade stares like two mirrors. She advances. The river forgets how to ripple. You choose retreat, not because you're a coward, but because you've read the footnotes. Cannibalism is a life cycle, not a phase. Dominance here is patience sharpened into geometry. The strong survive by declining invitations they can't afford to accept. Your greatest strength becomes humility disguised as absence. You make a promise to the mud, grow, but don't believe your press. Now you wear thickness like armor and quiet like perfume. Villagers invent you at night. Dogs edit their barking near riverbanks. Your folklore with a pulse. Safety, however, is outsourced to luck when the boats arrive. Aluminum blades carving sermons into water. Voices, beams, hooks. The human appetite for myth, skinned and monetized. They don't hunt your meat. They curate your silence. You employ your oldest strategy. Stillness so complete it feels like sleep. But time betrays statues. A hook is a sentence that ends in you. You realize the jungle has never been your ally, only your stage. Vines won't vote. Birds won't unionize. The mud is neutral, the way gravity is. Power helps until a hand wears a glove. You consider the math of retreat and learn a bitter truth. Sometimes the only counter to spectacle is disappearance so perfect it looks like surrender. You outlive fires that spell your obituary across the canopy, floods that reset the map, a bullet that edits the air beside your skull. Size confers reverence and bureaucracy. Maneuvering is paperwork now. You don't chase. You subtract distance from certainty until the strike is a formality. Every kill is a mortgage, interest paid in exposure and exhaustion. The irony is clinical. The bigger you become, the fewer places you fit. Reeds deny entry. Creeks become anecdotes you used to tell. Your breath is a headline to anything scanning for it. You perfect the art of being inevitable, a shadow that chooses when to become solid. Yet with magnitude comes surveillance, predators, rivals, humans, weather. You're a landmark that moves. The swamp has less room for monuments. Monsters are tolerated until filmed. You measure every motion in calories and consequences, and find the totals close. You are old in the way scars count age, each a chapter with missing pages. Survival reveals itself as accumulation, not triumph. You've outlasted predators and outlived peers, which sounds like victory until you listen to the silence it buys. Young anacondas avoid your orbit, not respect, not fear, just refusal to become footnote or meal. Hunger persists, now wearing sensible shoes. Kills are rarer, messier, more negotiable. You drift more, think longer, remember less on purpose. The swamp feels heavier, as if gravity filed an appeal. The myth you became is excellent camouflage and terrible company. No challengers, no students, only distance. You miss being feared, not for vanity, but for acknowledgement. Being avoided is a kind of erasure, clean, polite, terminal. You wonder if the river remembers you, or simply roots around the problem you became. You settle beneath the surface like punctuation at the end of a long, unread sentence. Motion is optional, presence, not so much. Thunder still edits your pulse. Blood still composes your focus. Time stops wearing numbers and starts wearing weather. You're less hunter than habitat, a movable absence mistaken for depth. The jungle forgets the loud and archives the still. You mastered both and got filed under legend, unverified. Power was never the headline, patience was. Apex wasn't a crown, it was permission to vanish without apology. Now your existence is a rumor that scares children into stepping carefully, and that's enough. You don't need witnesses. The river knows the shape you make in it, and the mud remembers what you weighed. If memory is mercy, you've earned a little. If not, you've earned this quiet. Now tell me, if this were your life, what would you choose? Fight early, flee often, or vanish perfectly? Drop your answer in the comments and prove your blood runs colder than the river.